Welcome to the Emporia Public Schools podcast. I am your host, Dr. Allison Anderson Harder, Superintendent. This podcast is our way to provide students, staff, parents, and community members easy access to information on a variety of topics. Today, I'm visiting with Mr. Eric Woltji, Project Manager from McCown Gordon. Welcome, Eric. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Allison.
So the community of Emporia passed a $78 million bond in November 2019 to provide upgrades to each of the district's 9 schools. So give us a little background about how McCown Gordon became associated with Emporia Public Schools as a partner on those 9 bond construction projects.
You bet. So originally you all selected HGK Architects out of Topeka to be your design partner, and they helped you put together packets for essentially RFQ, RFP, so request for qualifications, to send out to the market of interested construction managers, which is what McCown Gordon is. And, we got word that these projects were coming out and we were interested in them. They were, fairly close to our Manhattan office where we're managing the projects out of. So we went through essentially a selection process and then ultimately an interview process with the district and the design team. And ultimately, that's how we became your construction manager partner on these 9 projects that we're doing.
Awesome. Do you remember like a timeline of when those were happening? I know that's kind of
so let's see. I'm trying to think. Originally, we started to get involved with essentially board meetings and before the projects became a reality back in 2018 when it was first announced that Emporia was going to be doing construction projects on their schools. So I think we were selected late October of 2018. And then, we started working with HGK and the district on some conceptual budgeting, conceptual ideas of what the needs were at each of those facilities. And then when that bond passed in 2019, that's when we really got to work with HGK and all those dreams kind of started becoming a reality. And ultimately, the first project broke ground, if I remember correctly, was in October of 2020.
Wow. Yeah, and then everything. 2020 was so easy, so it was very smooth. And I just you have a nice timeline that you provide at the board meetings, and so if anybody's interested in that, you provide a monthly update during board meetings. Usually the first Wednesday as Wednesday's board meeting, but you might just talk a little bit about that timeline and maybe how somebody looking at that would interpret that.
Yeah, you bet. So as we've gone along and we've completed projects, we've updated that overall bond schedule. So currently, if you were to pull that up from the first board meeting of every month, you would see Emporia Middle School on there. And right now, the tentative completion date for Emporia Middle School is the end of this year, so December of 2023. Village Elementary would be on there as well, slated to turn that one over September of 2023. And then Riverside and Timmerman, which are the 2 newest projects. So those are projects 7 and 8 for the bond that we just started actually about a month ago, mid-May, once school is out. Those are slated to be complete by the end of this year / probably about the middle of January, just with a little bit of overlap there at both of those schools. And then William Allen White, currently HGK Architects are working through the design on that project. Kind of the hope is we'll be able to bid or have the drawings out on the street for bids towards the end of this year. And then, if things go well, our hope would be to hopefully start Q1, maybe late Q1 of 2024. And then that one, just because of the phasing and the amount of work that's going to take place over there, that will probably roll into summer of 2025 with a completion date.
Something that can be a little confusing when you're looking at the timeline is that you're expecting it to start. So when you see the school's name right at the beginning, you think it's starting, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there is a lot of work up front. There's a lot of what we'll call programming meetings where the design team and McCown Gordon are meeting with district administration and the staff on site to fully understand what those needs and those wants are at each school. It's almost like a whiteboard session. You go up there and you have select groups at each school put the needs and the wants that they want to see in the construction and the design up on the board, and then HGK takes those back, puts a plan together, and then we have another meeting to make sure all those comments were captured, and then maybe some idea doesn't make sense. Maybe others make more sense. So there's anywhere from, probably depending on the project size, anywhere from 6 months to a year of design and planning and budgeting that go into these projects before you actually start moving dirt. So there is a lot of work up front before ground is broken.
Thank you. And then on the district side, principals getting input from staff members, and that's really has been important. And so we make sure that we're getting staff input throughout the project. But then there is that the drop dead time when, okay, that's enough input because we have to be able to move forward and address the scope of the construction.
That is correct.
What would be the most rewarding aspect of the bond project so far?
So overall, it's just the amount of lives that these projects are going to impact. It's, the students is one thing, but it's the students, it's the families, the administration, just the Emporia community as a whole. I've been working on K-12 projects for the last 12 years, but being able to go into community and help at every single facility, that's really rewarding in my eyes, especially as a parent with young children that are, in elementary school as well.
And I'll bring up our ribbon cutting last year at the Jones Early Childhood Development Center. That was really exciting. And that's the only building that's all new construction.
Yeah, no, that was a great turnout. You could see the community light up as they got to tour that facility, and it's just, it sets you back, and it reminds you of why you're in the field that you are.
And as we go into the different office areas, different classrooms, all those updates in the just in the construction for the schools that have been completed, they look amazing.
They're turning out very well, and many compliments across the district. And it's just been a joy to work with you all and the community, and just see the smiles it brings to everybody's faces when they walk through a newly renovated or a brand new school that we've been able to help with.
Yeah, I know the teachers are really excited about the middle school and village being able to get into those classrooms. On the flip side, what are those challenges of the bond project?
So, some of the biggest challenges, working in an occupied facility, right? Safety is at the forefront of everybody's mind. We want to make sure that everybody can still get into the schools safely, that we keep the schools secure. And that's kind of really been the hardest thing to deal with. But also, the district has been very accommodating and very flexible to allow us the work around the occupied facilities while still being able to maintain the learning environment, because we don't want to impact that learning environment any more than we have to. We know, teachers and students, they have a day job, and that's to learn and to help those kids learn.
Well, and we were talking earlier in the meeting about music teachers having to go from classroom to classroom because they didn't have a classroom space, and principals and secretaries working inside gyms or other areas so the office spaces could be addressed as well.
Yeah, and it goes back to the flexibility that the district has provided us to, also look at, okay, if we take a little more area to renovate, there's maybe a little bit of short-term pain, but at the end, it's going to be a long-term gain. We may be able to get you into that area sooner than we originally anticipated.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great support with our principals and staff members and students because they've had to adjust as well, and all that has worked really well. We talked a little bit about COVID. So going back to when the construction started back in October 2020, how did COVID impact construction?
Yeah, good old COVID, right? So the impact was just similar to schools, is how do you keep everybody safe and keep things progressing forward? The biggest thing was worker safety and making sure you limited the large number of groups, and making sure the trade partners understood what not necessarily new requirements were, but how we were going to keep everybody safe. We upped a little bit of the cleanliness that we were doing on job sites, specifically to the main heavily trafficked areas, and spraying those areas down with chemicals to help kill potentially any COVID particles or diseases like that were on surfaces, so we could keep things moving forward. The real impact of COVID, I would say, from construction standpoint, didn't probably really affect us for about a year afterwards. And the reason I say that is we were still able to get all of our materials in a timely manner. What we've really started to see now, since the economy has been a little bit shaken up with inflation and everything after COVID has hit, is that's when the lead times of certain parts and pieces that are going into the new buildings is been the bigger impact. So we've had to get a little more creative on that front, as can we find a different material that still provides the same benefit, but it's more readily available than maybe something that was originally specified?
Well, I remember some meetings where those costs are really spiking as far as those materials and not knowing if they were going to continue to skyrocket or if they were going to flatten out. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you bet. So, in the past, we could anticipate roughly inflation about 2% per quarter. But about that year after COVID, we have from when COVID started to where we're at currently in the economy, we saw about a 30 to 35% increase from inflation. Now, that's general numbers. So it has a lot to do with the location of the project and the scope of the project, but they have stabilized more than what they had been about a year ago. Costs are still going up, but just not as drastically as what we have seen over that last year and a half.
So just talking a little bit about tracking the bond and making sure that we're staying within that scope of the $78 million. So how has that impacted the future projects?
Yeah, so we worked with the district and with HTK early on as soon as the bond was passed, and we set budgets for every facility that we were planning to do work on. And that was really set with the administration, just understanding what needs and wants were going to be required at each school. And to date, those budgets have remained intact. They've had to ebb and flow a little bit just as the economy has taken off. But overall, the same scope has been completed or will be completed at each school. Some schools were lucky enough that back in 2020, early when they bid, they came in well under budget. So those were some additional funds that were able to be either put back into that project for additional scope or put aside for later use where some of the budgets maybe were a little bit over what we had originally anticipated because of what the economy has done.
Looking at where we're at mid-June, thinking about the projects that are remaining, and when do you anticipate construction being completed?
Yeah, so as I had said earlier in the podcast, is we had started projects 7 and 8, which are Riverside and Timmerman Elementary Schools, about a month ago. So those were the latest 2 projects to start, and the last project that will start is William Allen White. HTK is currently in design for William Allen White, and we're hoping to see final drawings that we can put out for bid hopefully later this year. I'm hopeful maybe the September-October timeframe. And then a good goal for us would be to hopefully start late Q1 of next year. And with the amount of phasing that will take place at William Allen White, it's probably going to be a 2-summer project. So hopefully by summer of 2025, we would be wrapped up with William Allen White, and the rest of the bond, majority of the project should be really wrapped up close to the end of this year, first part of January of next year. So really exciting time as we near the completion of all the projects.
That is exciting. How has the Emporia community and local trade partners been able to work with you during all the construction?
Both have been great to work with. We try to keep as many dollars local as what we can just for the taxpayers, and trying to get those local trades involved. Some of the projects are bigger, and we've had conversations with the local trades that, they'll tell us if they have the manpower to staff those projects. If they do, we love their input. We've worked with a handful of local trades on the projects as we've gone through actually all 8 of these projects. But yeah, overall great. We've had pre-bid meetings on site to allow people prior to bidding come walk the jobs and see if it's something they're interested in. We've tried to do different types of packages that may work better for a smaller trade versus a larger trade to just keep that involvement as local as we can.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate that. So, we like to shop Emporia first. Yep. So you've made a lot of trips to Emporia for construction meetings as well as board meetings. So what will you miss the most about coming to Emporia Public Schools?
Shoot, trying to get to Emporia here lately is a little hectic that 177 is shut down. But overall, just the relationships that we've been able to develop with the district, the community, the local trade partners have been great as well. And you'll have a great selection of restaurants here that we love to spend time in Emporia and contribute as much as we can. So
Awesome. Well, I very much appreciate our working relationship and partnership, Eric. So you are very much appreciated, and anxious to have the construction finished, but we'll miss you. So
I appreciate that. It's been a fun ride, and yeah, it's, if you look back from when we first started in 2018 to where we're at now, it's been a long ride, but it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and you have weathered some transitions along the way, and I appreciate you've always been very just even keeled and positive, and appreciate that.
Yep. Well, you're very welcome, and it's been great getting to know you and work with you and your staff, and yeah, wouldn't change anything.
Thanks. Is there anything else you want to add or share with the community and families of Emporia?
Yeah, from McCown Gordon, I just want to say thank you for really welcoming us with open arms. It's been fun to get to know everyone in Emporia that we have got to interact with. It's been great watching the ribbon cuttings or the open houses at the schools as we turn them over, just to see the kids' faces and the parents' faces and the smiles that we were able to put on their faces just from the updates that were needed. And the world we live in, unfortunately, with the safety and security being a top priority on everybody's mind, the district, kudos to you all for taking that seriously and making it so kids want to come to school and be somewhere they can feel safe.
Yeah, appreciate that. Well, thank you, Eric. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, you bet.
And
Anytime.
doing that.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Anytime. We'll ask you back. As we conclude this episode, we would like to remind our listeners that below the podcast link, there is a link to an electronic form for anyone to provide feedback or ideas about the podcast you may have just listened to, or to share ideas for future podcasts. We will end on our Emporia Public Schools mission statement. We engage, we empower, we inspire. Thank you for listening, and watch for upcoming episodes.